Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. CNBC TV18 and Moneycontrol bring to you an interesting industry dialogue series, Manufacturing, Powering Economic Recovery, brought to you in collaboration with Rockwell Automation. In today's session, we're focusing on automating the future of mobility and India's electric vehicle story, how government interventions can help increase the adoption of electric vehicles, and what the industry can do to make electric vehicle mainstream, and what are the innovations that we're looking at in this sector? We are joined by Sudhendu Sinha, Advisor, Infrastructure Connectivity, Transport and Electric Mobility, Niti Aayog, and we're also joined by Mahesh Babu, MD and CEO, Mahindra Electric Mobility Limited. Thank you very much, Mr. Babu and Sudhendu Sinha, for joining us. I'm going to begin with you, Mr. Sinha. Niti Aayog has come up with many ambitious roadmaps, guidelines on how India can make that transition to electric vehicles. The EV penetration in India still is quite low. It's about 0.7% when it comes to all the vehicles on the road put together. Where do you think we are right now, Mr. Sinha, with our electric vehicle story?
Yes, you rightly said that because it relates to consumer behavior, and there are so many allied issues with related to, say, a lot of anxieties are there, a lot of myths are there. So maybe some amount of push that is required from our side could be, it has to be a little more meaningful, more impactful, and at the same time, what manufacturers should be doing, they should also be pitching in with more vigor, more enthusiasm, so that we are able to achieve it. But yes, if you ask me where exactly we are, I would say very enthusiastically that it is a very, very positive roadmap. It is a very, very positive going. Maybe occasional hiccups are there, some roadblocks are there. But yes, we will achieve the goal that we have set for ourselves. That is that someday, very soon, we will be going in for a kind of complete transformation from ICE vehicles to electric mobility. Yes.
Right. Mr. Babu, I'd like to ask you, from a manufacturer's point of view, it is still natural to buy a conventional IC engine vehicle. When it comes to customer behavior, what is the hindrance when it comes to adoption of electric vehicles, possibly on a larger scale?
We are at a very early stage of new technology EV adoption. This adoption will have its challenges on the ecosystem, on the consumer, on the industry, and even the policymakers, because policy always follows the technology, and technology always grows in leaps and bounds. So we'll have to look at segments. Let's look at segments. India is not a car market. The time we decide electrification, we should not jump into cars. India has large two-wheelers. We have a substantial three-wheelers. We have fleet cars. We have personal cars. We have buses. I think all of them will have a different curve of adoption. If you look at two-wheelers and three-wheelers, they are in a very early stage of adoption, and we are seeing at single digit, like 2%, 1% adoption in this segment, much higher than cars and others. The reason being that the three-wheelers, for example, let's say in the commercial applications, makes economic sense for the consumer to buy. It needs very less infrastructure like charging infra or anything. And with the current FAME subsidy and the government policy support, it perfectly fits into the economic behavior of the consumer. It makes sense for the industry to invest, and it can scale up pretty fast. The most difficult part is personal adoption. That's why we are looking at learnings from the West, where you need huge charging infrastructure. Any personal vehicle, go to any corner of India, people want charging, and that is going to create a lot of investments, infrastructure development and adoption challenges while we adapt it. Similarly, for buses, I think we can do it very easily with the depots being there. Charging infrastructure can be controlled. Government plays a very vital role in that infrastructure and capital usage. I think that can be done. So if you look at it, we are in a very nice stage in two and three-wheelers, and we'll have to look at four-wheelers and buses, how we want to take that forward.
What are the policy interventions which are needed to spur growth further? We've had FAME 1, we have had FAME 2, but if we want to increase personal adoption of electric vehicles, how does one do that? Are there certain policy interventions which are in the pipeline?
Yes, So we are trying to think through that what exactly is the problem, what exactly are the problems, why the affordability of the vehicle still becomes an issue for a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler in a two-wheeler or three-wheeler case. So we are working on that, and maybe that we are trying to work with the government and how exactly we could kind of think in terms of restructuring FAME 2 to make it all the more effective. That is number one. Number two, that how should we working with the banks, and if need be, with the help of the still bigger ones, so that the nationalized banks can have that confidence that okay, they are easy, they can gain the confidence of giving loans at an affordable rate to the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers people. That is two area. Third is of course the we want that the cost can only come down if we start having our ACC manufacturing program within the country.
Right. So yes, there has to be consumer awareness about the benefits of electric vehicles in the long term. Mr. Babu, we had Mr. Sinha saying that they are thinking about a number of policy initiatives, most importantly, restructuring FAME and also encouraging nationalized banks to lend more to people in the EV sector, people who want to buy electric vehicles, also possibly to companies which are in EV manufacturing. But from a manufacturer's point of view, Mahindra, for example, is a company which has been in electric vehicle segment for over a decade now. What has been your experience with some of the policy initiatives that we have seen in the EV space over the last few years? What needs to change for greater adoption?
I think, Parikshit, firstly, we'll have to see what Indian government have been doing from 2013, where the NMEP policy came and then FAME came and all that. So what I would say that I'm seeing a very proactive approach by Government of India engaging with the industry, consumers and various stakeholders on policy making. And that's how the FAME 1 came. A lot of learnings FAME 1 gave have been adapted in FAME 2. Mahindra, as an industry leader in electric mobility, we have been investing in vehicles, technology, and particularly Make in India initiatives. You can see a lot of local manufacturing of our battery packs, power electronics, motors, and the vehicles being done in India. The government FAME 2 today's policy almost comprehensively covers infrastructure for various segments of the vehicle, charging infrastructure, bus subventions, and many more.
Right. So there has to be a collaborative effort. But Mr. Sinha, when it comes to an electric vehicle roadmap, many of the foreign players in India, even domestic manufacturers, have been saying that we want a clear roadmap on where India is going with its electric vehicle story. What are the technologies that will be promoted? How much charging infrastructure will come out? You had prepared this paper on EV transition a few years ago, where you had said that India could possibly make a transition of 30% to electric four-wheelers, 80% for electric two-wheelers, and 45% for public transport and buses. Can this become a roadmap? Can this become a law? Can this become a directive to the industry that we must make this transition by 2030? Is there some thought like that in the Niti Aayog? Because I believe that this was being considered, but the idea was dropped at that point in time. Are you again considering such a roadmap for future?
No, I should not be saying in so many words that, you cannot go ahead with an element of compulsion built into it. It has to be on its own volition. But there is something called logic of technology and there is something called logic of economics. So if we are able to place and position the costing structure of electric vehicles almost equal or even less than that of the ICE vehicle, number one. Number two, there is no compromise on the quality standards, then that adoption becomes natural, see? And all our initiatives, even if it is voluntary initiatives, this is giving lot of dividends. Results are there. And in India, whatever small intervention is there, even a small step, the implication that it goes through That is a great step, you see. That is a great implication is there. So if you see when today the number of vehicles that has been supported by FAME and the number of electric vehicles that are already on road, that's number one. And if you try to see what implication does it have on, say, so many positive externalities, including that of pollution, including that of reducing carbon footprints, generating health assets, reducing pressure on health infrastructure, so many things. Then you see that it's a big, big thing. Now, in this entire our initiative of going ahead on the electric vehicles, we never think that manufacturers are something away from the governance system.
Right. But Mr. Sinha, I'd also like to ask you about bringing down battery costs because as of now, 60 to 70% of an electric vehicle cost is the lithium-ion battery. By when do you think we will be able to reduce battery costs to an extent that the price of an electric vehicle, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or even a car for that matter, starts matching that of a conventional internal combustion engine, or is at least somewhere close to it?
I would say that maybe if you ask me the exact number of years, it would be very difficult. But yes, I can anytime say 2 to 3 years maximum, max to max. But because why I'm saying this is that if you see the way the battery prices have been reducing from say kind of 1165 around a time span of what 10 years, it has come down to a level of 155, 156 till the last year, and it is again in terms of dollar per kilowatt hour, and it is again going down and down. So what I presume is that while on one hand the cost of batteries will keep on reducing, with the lithium-ion batteries, on the other hand, the alternate chemistries will start playing their more positive, more emphatic role, and they will also pull down the cost of the batteries till it becomes affordable.
So, Mr. Babu, I think a lot of questions for you here. Do you agree with this view that we would achieve some sort of price parity between electric vehicles and IC engines in the next 2 to 3 years? What policy interventions do we need to encourage lithium-ion battery manufacturing here in India?
Hi, Parikshit. This is a very tricky question, but I will answer the one which Mr. Sinha has said. I think there are a lot of segments where total cost of ownership is today at parity. Let's say three-wheeler with the current battery prices and FAME subsidy. It is at price parity. In fact, consumers are a little bit earning better per month with the low cost of operations of electric vehicle. Now, two-wheeler in a fleet, yes, any vehicle, if you run about 100 kilometers per day, this total cost of ownership will get nullified so nicely with the lower operating cost. The question is, if you have a two-wheeler and you run it only 10 kilometers a day, up and down 5 kilometers to your office and back, it's not going to have a total cost of ownership for a very long time. The question is, are we equating or we are looking at an equal symbol between electric and the IC engine? I think the electric vehicle gives far more comprehensive socio-environmental and technical advantage, and including total cost of operations in various sectors. Let's say three-wheelers. What we have seen, there is a huge impact of social change and women coming and started driving three-wheelers due to drive-by-wire technology available in three-wheelers, which is typically available in two-wheelers and high-end vehicles. So women find fatigue-free driving of electric three-wheelers. The Trio, which is being launched in the auto mode, we are seeing a lot of adoption. So if you ask me, electric buses will never become equal to electric IC engines. Even if the cost of battery comes down, because we need more batteries. The more and more the battery price comes down, in my experience, the customer expectation is more and more range getting adapted.
All right. So you're saying that EVs will become mainstream in the next 3 to 4 years, possibly. But of course, a lot will depend on the awareness, the battery price, and overall pricing of electric vehicles in the market, charging infrastructure that is available across the country as well. Mr. Sinha, thank you very much for joining us. I'd also like to thank Mr. Mahesh Babu for joining us on this special broadcast, Automating the Future of Mobility, and the special series, Manufacturing, Powering Economic Recovery, brought to you in collaboration with Rockwell Automation. Thank you very much for joining us. Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. We bring to you our special industry dialogue series, Manufacturing, Powering Economic Recovery, in collaboration with Rockwell Automation. Our topic today, Automating the Future of Mobility. We're discussing the electric vehicle transition in India. Globally, we're seeing automobile giants set themselves targets for converting their entire fleet to electric by 2030. We've heard announcements from the likes of Volvo Cars, Volkswagen, and also Jaguar Land Rover. But where is India when it comes to its electric vehicle transition? What technology will work for in India, and what will it take to have greater adoption of electric vehicles? We're joined today by Dilip Sahni, Managing Director, Rockwell Automation, and also Dr. Ranjit Date, Managing Director, Wipro Parity Automation. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Sahni, if I can begin with you, tell me how Rockwell Automation is preparing for India's EV transition. A lot is going to change over the next 10 years. A lot of the pieces of this puzzle are not very clear. But how do you think your company is preparing for this? Because it's an uncertain road ahead.
It is an uncertain road ahead, and the role that we play, we work very, very closely, not just with the brand owners, not just with the OEs, but with the entire ecosystem. We consider it to be our role to help people, not just have designs that are easy to manufacture, but actually help them, navigate this world where you have machine builders and line builders that are, dispersed globally, coming together and contributing towards realizing a production facility, right? Which is getting set up, in a shortest possible time, right? The product life cycles are shrinking. We just spoke about the fact that the technology itself is altering, at a staggering pace, right? Folks like us, we consider it to be our responsibility to team up and to partner with people who are making these investments and help them, create designs, that are easy to manufacture, have a digital thread that runs all the way from the design of the product to the production itself, helping them make sure that the production processes are well aligned. You may start with something like 10, 15 jobs per hour and go all the way up to 60, 70 jobs per hour, but it should happen in a manner that creates no bottlenecks, right? And all of these things need to be simulated, and whatever challenges are there need to be factored out, right? And we actually have technologies that help people to see these challenges ahead of time and then work towards eliminating them.
All right, Mr. Date, when I speak about Wipro Parity, what would be your view of India's electric vehicle growth story? What are the pieces of the puzzle that you find uncertain?
So, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It is a really exciting time for India, and one of the key differences is that in the era of the conventional automotive, where, for example, while Ford Motor Company was building a mass production line back in 1900s, right? We actually didn't have any manufacturing to speak of. I mean, we literally have caught up on something like a 50, 60 years of lag in the manufacturing as well as the automotive technology. Now, electrical vehicles, because they have started pretty much at the same time around the globe in terms of the progress towards them, I think it does not have that kind of a lag and disadvantage for India. India is pretty much off the starting block around the same time as the rest of the world. And that gives us a tremendous advantage strategically from the point of view of actually gaining a leadership position that otherwise wouldn't have been possible in the conventional automotive as a result of this always catching up of this lag. So for example, even for our components industry and the tier ones for the conventional automotive, it took actually a fair amount of time until the time that we started coming up on the global map. But on electrical vehicles, this is an opportunity that we really cannot miss. I mean, India really needs to play its cards right to make sure that, for example, China recognized that, and China actually took that early initiative. As a matter of fact, today in electrical vehicle space, China would be considered as one of the leaders. And that's exactly the reason that they couldn't have done so in the conventional automotive. So electrical vehicles should be treated as a strategic opportunity, a bus that we cannot afford to miss.
But also tell me, Mr. Date, when it comes to, of course, there are certain policy interventions the government needs to bring, but what can the industry do on its own to encourage adoption of electric vehicles and electric vehicle manufacturing in India? What would be your view, Mr. Date?
Right. And that's a very good question, because obviously government can do this, that, or the other. I think the two of the things that are severely lacking in India today is a vertical integration. At the present moment, at some level, we are still in a screwdriver technology mode where essentially we get a very high level of aggregates from rest of the world and then assemble the final vehicles over here. If we would integrate all the way down, possibly to the lowest, like for example, the electric cells, which actually get packaged into the bigger modules and packs, or the magnets or the stampings, all the way down to these components, when our supply chain develops that we are actually able to manufacture this entire vertical process, then the price points will drastically drop down in terms of, because they are driving the costs down, getting the benefits of the economic capture of the value as well as the economies of scale. So these are the things that Indian industry must adopt. They must reach the scale at which this business becomes basically financially attractive and takes one of the leading positions in terms of the global volumes, which at the present moment for India are very, very small. And clearly that will drive the price points and the price efficiency and therefore the affordability for the customer.
Mr. Sani, if I can come to you now, what kind of advanced mobility solutions can accelerate India's leadership in EV manufacturing?
Yeah, in terms of the needs for India, I think we'll have to really assess what really are the big consumers, right? The segments of the market, right? And clearly, as we are seeing already, on the one end you have the two-wheelers and also to some extent the three-wheeler segments, right? Which where it's turning out to be a lot more easier to envisage movement towards electric mobility. In terms of what would allow an en masse movement, right? Which is what we are wanting to see over the course of this decade, in favor of electric vehicle, is really making sure that we have the cost of the batteries, coming to an acceptable level, right? The affordability piece, commercial models around that, which at least what I've been hearing from many people within the industry, right? Can we have models which allow you to lease battery packs and so forth? I think it is innovation on the technology side coupled with innovation on the commercial models, which would help this this juggernaut move forward for each other.
Right. Just to speak about the PLI scheme, there is a PLI scheme for advanced chemistry cells as well, but the battery cost that forms the bulk of an electric vehicle acquisition cost. Are the current set of incentives and policy frameworks enough to incentivize battery manufacturing in India and bring those solutions, have local solutions to that?
One of the things that industry, and that is actually around the world, is worried about is the supply security of the raw materials. And that's one area for sure that government needs to take decisive steps in if they can actually create these bulk purchasing kind of an agreements for the entire country in partnership with the industry, then that's one thing beyond just the incentives that will actually securitize our ability to actually, otherwise you invest, you build the capacities, and now you are worried about the price of the day and the availability of the materials, and the whole thing is idling. That's something that the industry will worry about until the time that they make really big investments in this area.
Right. Mr. Sani, coming to you again, charging infrastructure will be key to electric vehicle adoption. What do you think needs to be the penetration of electric vehicle charging infrastructure in the country for people to become more confident about these EVs?
I think, build up of the infrastructure, eventually government and policymakers have a much bigger role to play. And I think over there, the commitment that we are seeing, from the government, from policymakers, seems to be quite impressive. Ones which would enable say leasing of the battery packs, right? And so forth. And there seems to be a very active discourse right now, out in the public domain, which gives me encouragement that a number of things will get tried out, and there would be a positive movement, in that direction.
Right. Mr. Dati, now to speak to you about manufacturing facilities, give us a sense of how much will a conventional internal combustion engine manufacturer have to invest in changing their manufacturing facilities, production lines, as Wipro Pari has invested heavily in automation, brings automation solutions to companies like Ford and other automobile giants across the world. How much change does a conventional car maker, two-wheeler maker, commercial vehicle manufacturer have to make to its manufacturing facilities, and what are the kind of investments that would be involved?
So typically the entire powertrain, right, is completely brand new. I mean, essentially nothing from the existing powertrain is replicated. Whereas thereafter, the upstream vehicle and the vehicle integration, a lot of that can be reused. So actually on the existing programs, we are doing a lot of these tool up or retool, where we incorporate adding a powertrain that is coming from a separate line, but coming into the main line for integration into the vehicle platform on the conventional vehicle assembly line. So there are ways to economize the investment, additional investment, by trying to reuse the existing production processes. I would say 10 cents to $1 can be reused, but the other 90 cents are getting reinvested.
Right. I'm going to take my final questions now with Mr. Sani and Mr. Date. Mr. Sani, give us a sense of how you see India transitioning to electric vehicles. We were hearing from Mr. Gadkari the other day, and he was very confident that in 2 years, the price of an electric vehicle would be very similar to that of a conventional internal combustion engine vehicle. Do you think it can happen that soon? How much of the transition will be achieved in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I would just share with you what my crystal ball tells me, and it's not as sharp, of course, as Mr. Gadkari's, right? But one thing I know for sure is I see a bias decidedly, not just in policymakers, but also in industry and consumers towards this direction. And as scales pick up, right, some of the costs involved, would eventually come down, right? Which is, batteries, as we have these giga scale factories getting realized, it's going to bring the cost down decidedly, right? And affordability is certainly going to go up. It's attracting the right kind of investment. It's bringing in the right kind of players, which is both the new age companies as well as the existing players who have the know-how of how automotives need to be built. And eventually it's going to make it economically very viable. Is it going to happen in 2 to 3 years? I think the jury is still out on that.
Mr. Date, what would be your view? How much of the electric vehicle transition can be achieved by 2030, according to the Niti Aayog? If we work towards an EV roadmap, we can achieve 30% electrification in two-wheelers and three-wheelers, 80% electrification when it comes to 2 and 3-wheelers, and about 30% for 4-wheelers. What would be your view?
If you talk about feasibility, it is certainly feasible. Of course, a lot more needs to be done both from the government and the industry to actually meet those numbers. I would, if I were a betting man, my bet would be that we'll fall short. But essentially, we hope that is not taken as a naysayer statement, but taken as a statement that is a call to action, and we, both industry as well as government, does more to make that vision realizable.
All right. It is very difficult to say right now, and crystal ball gazing is very difficult because this is a scenario, this is a story that's changing very, very fast. There are lots of technology revolutions coming in, a lot of technology players coming in, and all of that is going to change the mobility ecosystem in India. Dr. Ranjit Date, Mr. Dilip Sani, thank you very much for joining us on this special broadcast on automating the future of mobility. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
The idea of an electric car goes back over 100 years. EVs were very popular before internal combustion engines were even invented. The only problem was they were extremely unsafe. This day and age, we have the traditional automakers like Ford, GM, Chrysler, VW, and then you have startup companies that are really trying to launch into this space, but they're trying to launch in different ways. The Electric Vehicle Innovation Center is at the heart of Silicon Valley in downtown San Jose, and we built it here because this is the global hub of innovation.
So when you come to the Rockwell Automation Electric Vehicle Innovation Center, you can expect to be guided through the process of how Rockwell Automation can help you attain your goals as a company. No matter if you are an electric vehicle startup or an experienced customer in Rockwell Automation already.
We can serve just about anyone in the market, which is why we're building this thing, is that we're saying, hey, come on in. We want to show you something new as well as enhance what you're already doing. Better yet, we wanted to show things that we're doing that no one else is doing, AR and VR in the manufacturing space. We were able to collaborate with many partners, including PTC, Fanuc Robotics, Harada, and Eagle Technologies. Put that all into one place, you can serve a lot of different people. If a customer wants to see the Electric Vehicle Innovation Center, we're going to show it to them. But we want to make sure that the experience actually matches their expectations. We're trying to expand human possibility. If that's not human possibility for next year, it's basically for mankind, right? What are we trying to do for the world? And you can't look at that with a 1 to 5 year lens. You have to put on the 10-year, the 20-year, the entire pivot to industry that our company is doing. It enhances that. We've been innovating for a long time. It's not like we just started. But in order to have a center like this, we can show the world, listen, here's some of the things that you can do next year, but also that you might want to do in 5 years. If they come to the EVIC, we can give them a window into the future, but we can also help them right now in the present. To learn more about Rockwell solutions in the electric vehicle industry, please visit the Rockwell Automation website.
My name is Amit Veer Singh Bhamra, and I am an industry consultant with Rockwell Automation's regional and global automotive team. For the next 15 minutes, I would like to take you through our capabilities, proven solutions and use cases in electric vehicle battery manufacturing and powertrain solutions. So let's talk about what's driving this change in the automotive industry. Well, one of the obvious reasons is the switch from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, which is the main driver. And along with this, the various manufacturing processes and technology changes with getting driven with this manufacturing shift that are acting as a catalyst to bring the overall automotive industry at a turning point globally. So what does this mean to the brand owners and suppliers? Well, definitely a whole new approach is needed and at a faster pace. So it's important for the automotive industry manufacturers to have agility in their build processes, build what you want, when you want, and where you want, implement the best available EV manufacturing technologies, also ensure the complete traceability of the process and compliance to country-specific regulations, and need to have good controls equipment and the automation system that is highly efficient, being able to predict its failure so that any plant can have a planned downtimes rather than the unplanned ones. Also need to ensure the safety of the humans working on the lines or operating those equipment, and all this need to be achieved within that planned capex for any plant. At Rockwell Automation, we can help you accelerate your electric vehicle production to compete better with smart, flexible, and integrated automation solutions. Let us first take a look at some of the most important challenges for any EV battery manufacturing or a module or a pack assembly manufacturing line. Talking about productivity, it's always better to have a system that can be designed and commissioned in a quicker time and still be able to run with minimum downtimes. It should also be able to reduce the process bottlenecks and create cycle time improvement avenues also. Main bottleneck areas for any battery manufacturing system are seen in stacking, tab welding, or electrolyte filling areas. And now talking about quality, many processes in the battery manufacturing and even battery module and assembly manufacturing, they require positional repeatability to achieve manufacturing quality. And on the environment front, and the energy consumption is seen as a key driving area due to requirement of clean room space for a battery and module pack assembly applications. So having a lean M&E layout for such applications play a vital role to save the OPEX expenditures for any battery plant. Let me take you through some of the automation solutions that we have to offer to take care of the challenges we saw before. With the deep expertise of successfully design, install, and commission automotive projects globally, we are ready to help you reach your production goals. Talking about electric vehicle and battery manufacturing, we have multiple solution offerings for drivetrain manufacturing and assembly area, battery cell manufacturing, module and pack assembly areas, machining applications, and various material handling solutions. Talking about some of our technologies for solutions, let's see about the independent cart technology, or the ICT. In the last few years, we have been investing heavily in a new paradigm of motion control called independent cart technology. Independent cart systems are built on modular components that can be built to many shapes, sizes, and orientations. ICT replaces all mechanical components of a traditional conveyance system with simple and effective software profiles to define speed and flexibility in operation. This provides a higher uptime of the system along with high throughput and flexibility of operation. As the carts are software controlled, it also eliminates the need for additional sensors, actuators, or stoppers, making the system light to install, commission, and maintain. Going a little deep, the ICT has a quick stick motor, which is nothing but a linear synchronous motor, having magnetic coils placed in linear fashion. Each carrier or pallet has a magnet which moves based on the magnetic field created by the coils. There is no intelligence in the magnets and carriers. This system completely eliminates the need of flexi cables or slip rings in the system, reducing the component wear and maintenance to an extremely low level. As you can see through the video, the manufacturing line can be easily configured into a flow to product solution. One of the great features of this solution line is the integrated guidance that includes the options for switching, merging, and diverging. This solution also has been used in washdown environments. Talking about the automotive applications, ICT is extensively being used for body shop, buffer conveyors, electric vehicle assembly lines, battery cell manufacturing, and seat and interior assembly lines. It's also being explored as a future application for paint shop conveyors, the ASRS, and the powertrain assembly lines. This is a classic use case of ICT installation in an automotive body shop environment. The customer had earlier planned the process layout based on traditional conveyor systems. After getting convinced on the benefits of ICT, they revised the complete layout, what we see on the right side. Not only we see a reduction in floor space numbers, but the amount of machinery and tooling equipment required for earlier planned process flow using conventional conveying systems also got reduced drastically. This is exactly what ICT offers as an advantage, allowing multiple operations to be accommodated due to flexibility in layout and the process. The customer got a saving in initial capex along with considerable reduction in the operating cost of maintenance of the system as well in this case. Talking about the pouch cell transport system in battery manufacturing, this is another use case of an OEM based out of South Korea. As we can see, the earlier layout plan for a stacking and tab welding line was with a traditional double chain conveyor that obviously required more space and which meant more clean room energy consumptions. After switching over to our independent cart technology, it not only reduced their footprint and energy consumptions, but also gave them an increased throughput, a clean system that is with no need of conveyor lubrications causing oil drips and other related maintenance complexities on the shop floor, and of course a high uptime of the complete shop. We would urge you to look for similar applications in your respective areas where we can work together and bring you the desired savings using the ICT. We have a focused team who would work with you to extract maximum benefits out of every use case available. The other technology that I would like to talk here is on the EV motor winding and assembly. At Rockwell Automation, we have a deep expertise and global experience on motor winding applications. Our streamlined product portfolio and the widely accepted Ethernet IP network allows to transfer information, control, and safety signals all on the same bus. This reduces the density of field cables required for such applications having multiple access control. Moreover, the best-in-class feature of our family of servo drives are available for use at the click of a checkbox in the Studio 5000 environment. The adaptive notch and the load observer features of our servos enable to reduce harmful resonance and compensate unknown system mechanics, making it possible to achieve the required quality in winding the motor coils. We have a rich experience of delivering this solution through some of our best in business machine builders globally. Let's see some of our information solutions to help you in your digital journey. At Rockwell Automation, we also have the capabilities and resources to build virtual models of your machines to analyze the bottlenecks and predict the what-if scenarios. Our emulation software are also enabling to train the workforce on a specific task using VR media. The video at the top shown here is a virtual model of a battery module assembly machine. As you can see, the complete process is simulated to understand the system challenges and take corrective actions in design before even building the actual product. Similarly, the video at the bottom depicts the effectiveness of virtual reality in production environment, assisting the operators to do first-time right assembly of a drivetrain system. Talking about the integrated control and information solutions, we have evolved our architecture into a high-performance integrated architecture through some significant investments in innovation. This high-performance architecture is scalable, future-proof, and built upon contemporary technologies with the next generation capabilities for enabling the connected enterprise. Our qualified launch and program management teams aren't just experts in automation. They know the global auto and EV standards and can interpret and apply them to help you optimize controls and processes of your complete facility. With the MES software, you can integrate your control and business systems to execute and track orders across your enterprise. You can also gain the additional context you need to turn production data into actionable information. Keeping up with growing EV demands while also accommodating changes to EV battery technologies will require high-performance, flexible machines. Switching to our intelligent conveyance system can help you achieve flexibility without compromising on throughput. Our digital engineering solutions and software help you visualize and analyze the equipment and the facility before it's even built. With all these skills in our arsenal, we enable our customers to be equipped with Industry 4.0 standards for EV. With a value-driven implementation approach, we start with a value workshop with key stakeholders to identify the most critical use cases based on your strategic business priorities and quantify the associated business values. The output is an initial digital thread and a roadmap that defines strategic business objectives, prioritizes the opportunity areas, sets clear milestones, and ultimately establishes a strong digital vision for the organization. Through our digital readiness assessment, we also evaluate your digital maturity across data, software, hardware, processes, and the users. We are here to be a long-term strategic partner for your organization's digital transformation journey. Over the past years, we have developed deep domain expertise across manufacturing industries. We have an experienced consulting and delivery team and a best-in-class integration partners to help you in your digital journey. We have leveraged this expertise and learnings from working with world-class organizations to build an open platform that works with the systems you already use. We also simplify and automate IT/OT convergence with a data model optimized for digital thread, and also enable seamless transformation across the organization with augmented reality. Finally, I really appreciate your time to be in this session and hope that this session would be useful for you to engage with us for any opportunity related to EV or battery manufacturing. Please feel free to reach out to us and help you along your EV journey. Thank you.
Welcome to RA Battery, a demo that is powered by Factory Talk Innovation Suite. Today, I would like to give you an overview of our state-of-the-art Innovation Suite platform and how it can enable battery customers from an executive to the plant floor level and help optimize manufacturing operations. As you look out at the enterprise view, you can see that the OEE is falling as well as the production units, a warning sign to review the raw material management as well as the asset utilization. We can go to the all plant performance to see the status. And here we see that Seoul plant is having a higher amount of scrap rate. From here we can navigate to the Seoul plant and see what is going on. We can clearly see that Seoul plant is having some issues with the OEE as well as the production units going down. From here, we see that our plant-specific KPIs are up top and area-specific KPIs are on the left, giving additional indicators on our process. Let's go deep into the cell activation process. As we dial into the cell activation area, and we see that formation line number 2 is leading the chart in the downtime by duration as well as by occurrence. And also some scrap reasons such as cell short circuit fault, high discharge rate, or high charging rate. We can go a level deeper in to track the genealogy of the battery cells that are being tracked for their performance state. We have got a couple of actions to decide for the maintenance folks to debug the issue. Mark some of the cells as check quality team to decide based on the physical status of the cell whether to scrap or whether to rework the cell. This makes it a closed loop process to track and resolve the issues identified.
Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. CNBC, TV18 and Moneycontrol bring to you an industry dialogue series, Manufacturing, Powering Economic Recovery, in collaboration with Rockwell Automation. We're discussing automating the future of mobility. Our focus today is on India's electric vehicle revolution, where we are right now, how things can change over the next 10 years, what are the innovations that we're seeing, what can the government do to increase the electric vehicle adoption in the country, and what the industry can do at its own end to make electric vehicles more popular. Thank you very much for joining us on this show. We are joined by Mr. Suinder Gill, Director General at Society of Manufacturers of Electric Vehicles. We're joined by Himanshu Jadhav, CEO and Director, GenderMark India, Nishant Arya, Executive Director, JBM Group, and Arvind Kakru, Country Head, End User Business, Rockwell Automation. Mr. Gill, I'd like to begin with you. How has the pandemic changed the dynamics of India's EV market, and what are the opportunities that this pandemic has thrown for electric vehicle makers?
Well, I think there has been some sort of a connect between the environment and mobility. And that's what we have seen through this pandemic, that electric mobility has got some bit of credibility in terms of doing its bit in the environment. So that's one clear connect. And especially with the Harvard study also, which says that the lungs are affected straight away by the pollution on the road, and electric mobility can go a long way in reducing that. So that's one thing. Second is, even in the individual level, customer has perhaps in his decision making when they walk into my showroom, a bit of questioning about how much greenhouse gases, what do I do if I have to change the battery, the recycling of battery, such questions are coming up, which means sensitizing of an individual level also is leading to a little bit of electric mobility on the forefront. But through the pandemic, as everybody has suffered, electric mobility has suffered. For example, I just got the figures of two-wheelers against 152,000 previous year. We did 143,800 in the year that just closed on March 31st, a dip of around 5%. But the good part is the recovery in the last 4-5 months before this last 2 weeks had really accelerated and put the electric mobility back to a doubling of growth year on year. So I think after we are through with the COVID, we will be into an exponential growth.
Okay, so you're looking at an exponential growth period post the pandemic. Nishant, if I can get you in, as far as JBM Group goes, what is your view on India's EV adoption? Do you think there has been an increased adoption, increased awareness about electric vehicles in the last 1 year that COVID-19 set in and affected our lives and changed our lives altogether?
No, so firstly, Parikshit, I feel that the kind of awareness about sustainability and about a commitment which each individual has to make towards sustainability is of the highest level now. And people are truly sensitized that how can they contribute to this cause, that we are becoming self-reliant as a country, and we are all now having an experience. What does a clean environment look like? What does a healthy environment look like? And what are the benefits of such environment which we all can have? Simultaneously, a clear ecosystem of electric vehicles is coming up in our country, where the target actually was not electric vehicles, was zero emission vehicles. And in zero emission vehicles, electric mobility today is the most promising technology. And I clearly see that in next 3 years to 4 years, electric vehicles will play a very key role in really demonstrating and bringing India on the global sustainability map of the world.
Mr. Jadhav, if we speak about the supply chain of electric vehicles, a lot of it is still coming from China. It is imported, and we will have to localize to a great extent in order to cut costs, make electric vehicles cheaper. So from a point of view of a component manufacturer, what is the kind of visibility on electric vehicles or EV growth that you're looking at in India? How is Gendermark preparing for India's EV revolution that we may see in the next 7 to 8 years?
I think we all have experienced the effect of pandemic and its disruption to the supply chain. Heavily, almost 88% of the components were being brought from China and they were assembled in India. And what we have seen in last 1 year, there is a level 2 of localization. So a lot of companies have moved from their dependency on China and other countries to localize a further level down and use the expertise and engineering which Indian companies have. Having said that, getting a part localized once and ensuring the same consistency in the product quality every single time, that is where we see a challenge, and that is where we also see a Gendermark an opportunity to create world-class assembly lines. It's one thing to have good products. You can have a good product made once. It's a different game when you have to make millions of it, and as the volumes for two-wheelers and three-wheelers indicate, we are talking at almost 4 million in 2025. To make 4 million accepted good quality secure products, that's where we see a huge opportunity from us as a company who makes machines, automation, assembly lines. And that's what we have been doing now for the last 3 years, is create a robust system which is not just depending on machines, but also using the effective skills of an individual operator and ensuring that using the right kind of machines, equipments, and the right kind of trained people and skill sets, we are able to support the entire expansion which will happen. I think it will be an explosion, not an expansion, which will happen very soon in the EV tier 1 business.
Right. Mr. Kakur, if I can come to you now, the pandemic had halted EV manufacturing due to supply chain disruptions. And I'm sure EV manufacturing has been hit due to lockdown in Maharashtra and several other states yet again. So what is the future? What is your outlook on electric vehicles for the year 2021? What do you think automation and other technology innovations can do for the EV growth of the country?
So let me start by saying that electric vehicles, they present a very new challenge, that mostly existing automotive brands and startup companies have yet to face. These challenges will fall into several technology aspects, like making the vehicles lighter, transitioning to EV platform, battery production, and supply chain evolution or disruption, if you say. So, being automated and being digital and connected at the same point of time, would be very much in demand, as in normal sense. But even with new, kind of disruption that we've seen, which were not seen before, the companies, for them to stay productive and be competitive, they need a very connected, information-driven operations to produce vehicles as rapidly as possible and with the lowest possible cost and risk. And an agile production system, that allows to quickly and effortlessly pivot if demand or technology changes. So if we extend that further, to, for example, to battery manufacturing, which is a very big component of the EVs at this point of time, there's a tremendous amount of challenge in delivering enough power for the world's growing volume of EVs. And India is supposed to kind of be the major hub for battery manufacturing that way. So accomplishing this requires a lot of, ramping up of the production to meet the exponential demand growth, use track and trace capabilities to consistently deliver high quality, safe batteries, and adjust on the fly to keep with the rapid evolution of battery technology. So, and then you take it up to the whole connected enterprise, wherein you look at technologies like AR and VR. You look at the whole system manufacturing, connected end to end, even taking it to the suppliers and consumers. So for all of those things, being digital is the right thing to do at this point of time, and even more so, after the events of last 1 year or so.
Right. Mr. Gill, as somebody who is the Director General of the Society of Manufacturers of Electric Vehicles, who has a good overview of where the market stands, what the capabilities are, what the capacities are, what is our current level of localization when it comes to electric vehicle manufacturing, EV components, and what steps do we need to take towards self-reliance and make in India when it comes to EVs?
Well, as a speaker told, we have started on so-called bucket 2, which is a genuine localization in all spheres, whether it is buses or cars, three-wheelers or two-wheelers, more so in two-wheelers because they are large in numbers. But what needs to be done for the people who want to invest into supply chain is to see the volumes. So it becomes sort of a vicious circle where they keep asking us, for example, when they come to, they say that, how much are you producing? I said 50,000, next year 200,000. Oh, still low volume. So the first thing that can cut this is somehow create the volume, not really bothering too much about 100% localization. So we are wary because it's from China. Had it been from Taiwan or Europe, perhaps we would have been less wary about it. So from that point of view, the scale is very important for many points of view. One is the scale itself increases the visibility on the road. So more and more people get positive word of mouth and catapultates like a snowballing effect about electric mobility going higher in exponential. And that leads to supply chain being very robustly coming and jumping into it. Everybody trying to get a slice of cake. So I believe the volumes come first, scale comes first, supply chain would happen. But there are investors now, without really going into much of volumes confidence, they have started investing because of the confidence they have got, because of policies, because of manufacturers who have jumped into it, large players who are coming into it, and otherwise in their strategies.
Mr. Kakru, speaking about technology innovation, tell us about the kind of innovations that we need in order to encourage greater adoption of electric vehicles. What can be done that may, in a way, dispel some of the anxieties that a customer may have when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to other technologies that are emerging?
Sure. So let me say, that these all fall under the ambit of digital or Industry 4.0, which is reframing the whole automotive industry and its value chain. The fast lane to efficiency is a smart, connected, I would say, EV factory. From the mine to the dispatch way, a connected operation achieves optimization and production, much faster for lesser cost and with less risk.
Right. Mr. Jadhav, if I can come to you once again. As you're somebody who's a part of the entire automobile production chain, how much change or how drastic would the change be when it comes to focusing on electric vehicle manufacturing? It is often said, preparing your long-term roadmap, keeping in mind India's electric vehicle growth story, and what are the kind of changes that have to be brought out in an industry?
We have to also understand from a product design aspect that the number of components are going to be lesser, absolutely correct, but the components are getting squeezed into a available space in a car. Not many companies are today, unfortunately, coming up with new EV cars, and everyone is trying to fit in a battery pack and a motor and a thermal system into an existing vehicle, which makes it challenging, which means we have a limited space, and the product design is now getting smaller and smaller to accommodate in the available space, which makes the assembly process far more critical and complex. And that's where we come in, where we have now created already the solutions, machines, equipments to manage this small parts being put together in a concise space. And all of that has to be done in a very special environment using special techniques, which will ensure that the repeatability of the process is ensured. One small example also, which process security, because now you have a huge demand, you have inexperienced or let's say less skilled operators, and I think that's the more area of focus which Gennamark has today, of bringing process security irrespective of the employee operator, his skill set, his experience, so that the demand can be met in a secure and a process safety is ensured in the whole process. And I think that's
All
what
right.
we are trying to bring into the picture more and more.
All right. So safety of process continuity is what you're talking about. Very important for a company. But one more thing, if I can ask Mr. Jadhav,
Yeah.
there are two approaches that are followed when it comes to electric vehicles. One is to convert existing IC engines, like you said, IC conventional IC engines into electric vehicles. The other is to build a new electric vehicle ground up. You build a new chassis, you build everything new for an electric vehicle. In the long run, for a consumer to be more confident about a product, which product will be more successful? One which is a ground up electric vehicle, a completely new vehicle which was built keeping in mind that you're building an electric vehicle, or one which has been converted into an EV?
I think it's a catch-22 situation, honestly, because we are used to a particular car and we know a particular car or a vehicle or a bike, or it works because it's been IC. And I think it's more resonating, or it's more reassuring when you see the same vehicle being converted and offered as a EV. So that's I think where a lot of companies whom we come across, the reason why they want to go in that direction is, of course, it is less expensive for sure. They have a product which is accepted in market, and definitely it is easier to promote it as a who is a winner, to sell it again as a EV winner. So I think that's where the companies are getting driven by the fundamentals in the market. But on the other hand, to be really successful and to give the anxiety which a customer has of range, of so many other issues of a EV, charging location, charging points, it's important to think differently. It's important that we start fresh at some point once the market is matured to accept EV, to start now coming out with vehicles which will definitely bring the EV side, the fears which a EV company or fears which a EV owner has are set aside by using these new technologies, and hence a bottom up. In the end, I think a bottom up car or a vehicle or a two wheeler would be the right way going forward, in our opinion.
Okay. Mr. Kakru, if I can get you in, we have been speaking a lot about technology innovations that are required. One of the reasons why China is a leading market is because they have the skills available, the scale that they provide. How much, where are we when it comes to skilling that is required for a faster transition to electric vehicles or greater manufacturing of electric vehicles? How much do you think India, the government, needs to focus on skilling on green vehicles?
On the manufacturing side, also we are doing pretty great. So there's skill available in the existing industry, but that has to be kind of reskilled or redeployed and trained, and right kind of investments made in that direction in terms of getting people up there, adopting some of these technologies globally. Some of the countries are much better off, like Western Europe, for example, or China from manufacturing point of view. We'll have to possibly see how we collaborate and adopt the best practices also, and also some policy decisions which kind of help people focus more on the technology side of it, and also in terms of concessions or helping people kind of bridge that gap with the IC technology at this point of time.
Right. Nishant, if I can bring you in with regard to the policy framework in India currently, what are the hurdles that you still see? There have been a number of laws that have been brought in to encourage EV manufacturing, EV adoption. There are state level EV policies which are rather attractive. Delhi has its own electric vehicle policy. Telangana has its own policy. Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, UP, Gujarat. Every state is now coming up with a EV roadmap. But any policy hurdle that you see which is probably slowing down the adoption of electric vehicles, something that the central government can do, something that state governments need to do?
Yeah, I think a lot of good things have been done, including the PLI and the state policies, the central policy, and a clear framework that how governments can bring many government vehicles, converting them to electric. I think certain clear focus areas for making us self-reliant and enhancing the adoption of electric mobility would be to first see that how priority lending is given for purchasing electric vehicles, and for electric vehicle manufacturers, the whole ecosystem, that's must. multiple startups are mushrooming, how the industry, startup, academia relationship can be institutionalized in a manner where they can partner and work together. Thirdly, companies in India, many companies are not focusing on technology as much. They can't invest in technology. How to incentivize investment into R&D, engineering, and technology building within our country in a very frugal manner. Fourth, how to bring in certain green zones. So we should actually create some pilot cities across different states across the country, and then they can be replicated according to the requirements in different states, and they can really be good demonstrators for people to understand what needs to happen, how it can happen, which many countries have done. People are starting in many cases with certain cultural sites and other things as well. Just to give you a small example, how in Amsterdam or in Paris, they really brought in taxi service initially with few hundred taxis, thousands of taxis, which were electric, and the company was operating and running those taxis in different areas. The parking was made free. So in multiple ways, you incentivize people to use the kind of electric vehicles and sustainable vehicles they need to. So I think that is very important. Many smaller companies, MSMEs, are unable to invest. So how today we have SIDBI and other banks who are willing to support, but they're not getting the desired level of support. So and providing them right level of environment for manufacturing as well. I think that is what is important. So a lot of it can be done within our country, and we can be self-reliant and very focused how to develop the EV ecosystem, and we would not lose out like we did in solar, that still till date majority of is imported. And as the government has been able to realize this very quickly, so that is something important. And last but not the least, around the battery and the motor, so the permanent magnet, or we're talking about different chemistries for batteries which are there. So whether we talk about lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, so there are many other new batteries coming up. A lot of research and technology development around that area is important, and how the government can work with the industry in certain areas, investing into those mines in different countries, having long-term tie-ups with them, like what we do for oil today. It's going to be the new oil in the future. And at the same time, in many cases, new technologies where India has abundance of those minerals, and dependence on global companies as well as countries would be limited, and how we can become the manufacturing hub for the world.
So as a manufacturer, how do you prepare yourself for future technologies that are coming in? The government, a minister can go ahead and say that, yes, we'll be promoting five or six different types of green technologies. But how do you know as a manufacturer what you need to do to get right?
Well, I think one thing is very certain, that the world will get out of polluting vehicles, whether it is liquid fuel or something. So everything is tending towards cleaner vehicle. Now, within cleaner vehicle, electric or lesser polluting fuels or alternate technologies, they are all part of the same plate, and there is enough on the plate for everybody, at least for a decade or two. So there is no issue of when Mr. Gadkari talks of alternate means also of not only electric, because there is so much room to grow. But as investors, or as my money, for example, or owner's money into the business, what investor looks for is simply integrated policy. For example, if there are 7 ministries talking, they should talk one line, one tone, one goal. Second is at least some transparency into the future, not just every year renewing things on the go. Some transparency of 3 to 5 to 7 years at a broader level about the action plans, not only wish lists, not only ambitions, but a target approach of macro level interventions that government is intending. And third, believe you me, investor doesn't want subsidy to be a dependent factor for any investments into the companies. So on that side, perhaps investor would look at a business model which is subsidy agnostic. Therefore, they would look for models which are most supportive from infrastructure point of view, like facilitation point of view, supply chain building point of view, and robustness point of view.
Okay, and I'm sure this policy will also evolve over a period of time. But I'll put my final questions to Arvind and Himanshu. And Arvind, I'll begin with you. A lot of figures often flow in the media globally. Companies like Volkswagen, JLR, and Volvo, they've set themselves target to make a transition to electric by 2030, a full transition. How do you think India's EV growth story will move till 2030? What will be our transition to EV, electric mobility, in the next 9 years?
I think, a lot of things are moving in the right direction from a policy point of view. There's some things that still had to evolve. For example, how to kind of make them more efficient, how the battery technology will evolve, and how the pace will be set. But we've seen very recent announcements even during the pandemic. I would say in the last 6 to 8 months, I have seen so many projects getting announced that I have not seen before in the preceding 3 to 5 years as well. I would say, the investment money will also flow down, into some of these projects. And since they are much faster to execute than the traditional auto projects, that will accelerate some of the, I would say, ambitions that we have as a country. So things hopefully will move much more aggressively. There are a lot of figures being thrown that will be number one kind of target where EV will be exceeding, the traditional, automobile industry, overall. But India would be somewhere close. That's my sense.
Right. And my final question to Himanshu. Himanshu, where do you think India's EV transition is right now? What are the kind of numbers that you're looking at by 2030?
I think the EV transition is at its very nascent stage, to be honest. What we think as EV and if you look at what China has achieved or the developed economies have achieved, I think we are at a very initial early stage of this transition period. In terms of numbers, I think the sky is the limit, that's for sure. But I think I have one point to add and address over here is in terms of the government incentives and the support from the government. So a lot of efforts and a lot of the FAME 2, for example, is also focusing a lot on bringing a product. It's focusing on giving incentives to sell a product. But unfortunately, the factor where we and maybe even Rockwell fits in is creating the asset, creating the resource is left out. So we, going by my personal experience, we built 3 years back the first electric battery pack assembly line for India for Mahindras. We were on our own. Financially, technologically, we had the strength. We could come up with our own Indian engineers. We could come up with an intelligent solution. But financially, we were left on our own. There seems to be a missing element which needs to be brought in, that you can't just have a good product. You can't just have a good selling strategy. You also need to have a very strong engineering which goes in creating these products. And I think that's where it goes. And and when I talk to most of my customers, right from Mahindras to everyone, in fact, Hero is one of our potential as well. We have come across this hesitancy, in which I completely understand. Because of the uncertainty in the market, there is a hesitancy to invest, and when there's a hesitancy to invest, there is a difficult to innovate. I think it's a vicious circle that you don't want to invest, you don't want, because of the uncertainty, and because of that uncertainty, there is a lack of enthusiasm to innovate. And whereas if you look at our neighbor, 30% of the effort initially is in innovation in R&D, and that needs investment. And if we are able to get some focus from the government side for us to create this kind of a supporting infrastructure, so which allows our customers, which is Hero, Mahindras, whoever, to create their products, because this, like Mr. Gill also said in the beginning, it's the scale and the volume, and to achieve the scale and volume, you need absolutely strong facility at the back end. And like Mr. Rockwell also said, that we need the digital transformation to happen. We can't have a digital transformation by just talking about it. And we have now for last almost a decade now, we have been promoting this, and we have been now I'm seeing, which is a good sign, in last 2 years, a lot of EV tier 1 companies have approached us, and we are rolling out solutions to them. And there is, we have come up with our own schemes now of to reduce the investment impact or the capex impact. We are coming up with our own schemes of funding it over a period of time, over 3 years, 5 years, so that there is no direct one-off cost to the customers. I think that's where we need to come up with some innovative solutions, because EV is the way forward. Definitely, the sky is the limit, but we need to put a ground reality first today.
Right, we need to look at ground realities, priority lending, increase charging infrastructure, and create greater awareness for greater adoption of electric vehicles, invest in R&D. Those are some solutions that industry experts are telling us. But I'd like to thank all our panelists, Mr. Sohinder Gill, Himanshu Jadhav, Nishant Arya, Arvind Kakru for joining us, giving us their overview of where India stands with its electric vehicle revolution and how things will change over the next 10 years. Thank you very much for joining us on this special broadcast.
Today's manufacturers are operating in a time of unprecedented change. Faced with a workforce that's rapidly approaching retirement, legacy technologies that frustrate younger, digitally savvy employees, and products and processes that are becoming increasingly complex, one thing is clear: it's time for a new approach. For solutions that make it easier to maximize workforce productivity, to share knowledge across the enterprise, simplify training, and provide real-time access to information on the plant floor. What if you could bring your top talent to any problem, no matter the location? What if you could connect people on the plant floor with remote experts to resolve issues faster, save money by eliminating the need for on-site visits and travel, and improve uptime and operational efficiency? Rockwell Automation and Digital Thread make all of this possible today. Using technologies like augmented reality, a new operator can get real-time support from a seasoned expert located anywhere in the world. You can document standard operating procedures and make that knowledge available on demand. And you can put detailed walkthroughs and step-by-step instructions with drawings and overlays onto the machines that are right in front of the workers. With Digital Thread, an operator can seamlessly access information like safety precautions hands-free from the plant floor, as well as learn new skills and get up to speed on new designs faster. By empowering your workforce with Digital Thread, your organization can increase operational effectiveness and safety, connect people with expertise anywhere through remote collaboration, and decrease training time by up to 75%. And you can see the value of your Digital Thread investment increase as more digital content is shared and reused. Rockwell Automation can help unlock your digital potential by adopting digital technologies with a focus on empowering people that leads to increased safety, productivity, and efficiency. Leveraging over 100 years of experience, we bring deep domain expertise across manufacturing industries, pre-integration with a best-in-class partner ecosystem, and comprehensive consulting and delivery services that support you every step of the way. So, when you're ready, we can help you maximize workforce productivity by enabling faster, easier capture and sharing of knowledge, reducing training time, and ensuring operator effectiveness and compliance. All done through an enterprise connected with Digital Thread. Find out more at rockwellautomation.com and schedule a value workshop with one of our domain experts today.
Okay, welcome to our discussion on how automotive manufacturers can minimize the pain of the transition to electric vehicles. And I first of all want to thank Vipin Goyal for giving us the opportunity to speak about the auto industry today. So I get the great privilege to start by introducing Michael Glessner. Michael is a director at Calypso, and he's aligned with our industrial and high-tech practice, and he has deep experience in the automotive industry. Michael's been with Calypso for about 10 years, and his areas of expertise include smart connected operations, asset management, and new product development, among many others. Prior to joining Calypso, Michael was a vice president and director of engineering for an engineered polymer solutions company. He built a consulting practice assisting a portfolio company, and spent 8 years at Arthur Andersen's business consulting practice. And before all that, he began his career working for General Motors, progressing through a variety of positions, culminating as a quality manager of a $2 billion automotive assembly plant. So welcome, Michael.
Nick, thank you very much. That was very gracious. Now I have the honor of introducing Nick Ward. All right, Nick is going to have this conversation with me. And Nick is a manager in our industrial high-tech practice, and he primarily focuses in the automotive industry and has a lot of deep manufacturing experiences that we've drawn upon. He's been with Calypso about 5 years, and he started his career actually as an engineer in the auto industry. So Nick, thank you for being here with me and having this conversation. So let's start first with a little bit of background about Calypso. All right, Calypso is Rockwell Automation's digital consulting arm globally. And if you look top right there, you'll see the industries that we serve, one of which is industrial high tech, and our automotive practice is within industrial high tech. And we service those industries with consulting practitioners and industry SMEs blended in our project teams and kind of throughout our ranks. And we find that it's the blend of our strategy consulting capabilities along with our technology capabilities. All right, the technology capabilities create kind of a foundation for us to work away from, and we have expertise across a number of industries, a number of technologies that are pertinent to our clients and our digital performance areas that we serve. And what ends up happening is our strategy consulting folks can actually work with senior executives on framing business problems very, very effectively. And that informs our technology work and where we want to emphasize our development and growth and expertise. And then our work with those technologies in turn informs our strategy work. So it's a great blend that has worked very well for us over the years. And now on top of that, we've been able to add advanced analytics, right? It builds upon these capabilities and it really brings a whole new dimension digitally to our clients and the ability to really create value in a number of ways. So Nick, the next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about, as the digital consulting arm, we bring a special digital perspective, we like to think of it, to the client situations and challenges. And it's the digital thread is the concept that we like to talk about. And if you think of the life cycle of a given product or technology, you see that kind of across the page, discover, create, make, and sell. And through it, there are a number of activities that are typical within firms. And there's almost like nodes of activity within that life cycle. And they are blended together with threads of information that sort of connect them. And in some firms, that connection is much more complete than in others. But that connection is we refer to as the digital thread. All right. Now, what's being threaded together, it's that use and reuse of data, all right, throughout the life cycle. There's something known as the digital twin. And the twin is really that, the digital reflection of the physical world of process and product. And the blending of that digital twin throughout the digital thread is what we find very interesting in helping frame and characterize tremendous possibilities for performance improvement for our clients. So this is what we bring to the table. So I think that's a great backdrop to maybe begin this conversation. So Nick, let's jump in.
Yeah, great, Michael. I really appreciate that you introduced the digital thread. I think that's a really important concept in the industry today. I'll start by setting the stage for kind of the main discussion that we wanted to have. So if you look in India today, as well as much of the world, there's a really strong movement for automotive manufacturers to start moving into and start building electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are clearly an exciting trend globally, and they promise many exciting benefits, such as environmental benefits like reduced CO2 emissions, reduced reliance on imported fossil fuels, and even safer mobility through driver assist capabilities that are more enhanced.
Good point. I like that. Yep.
Yeah. However, this shift from traditional internal combustion engines to electric powertrains, it really is a seismic one, and it's important to consider and plan for the implications. So I think you would probably agree that the change for the industry is dramatic, but digital capabilities can really help enable and accelerate this transition that's underway. And we feel that Calypso's familiarity with digital really blends well with the need within the industry for change. And we think that our capabilities are really relevant right now.
Yep. Can really help ease the pain, all right, in a lot of ways. Yep.
Yeah, so let's set the stage. How is traditional auto manufacturing and EV manufacturing similar?
Good question. So if you really think about this, when you start talking about electric vehicles, they're still vehicles in nature, right? So from a processing standpoint, quite familiar, all right? You've got your, a typical plant that's going to be producing these is going to have body, paint, trim, and chassis departments still, to some degree. There could be some unusual technologies and things that are emerging right now, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But I think the process is going to be fairly similar. Now, obviously, there's exceptions in the powertrain. All right, there will be obvious differences there, and we'll get into that. But there's also, I think, from a standpoint of the systems of a vehicle, if you really think about it, a vehicle is made up of many systems and subsystems. So you can talk about the body structure, body in white often. You can talk about interior cabs and soft trim, hard trim within that interior component. And then all sorts of more advanced and let's call them complex systems, steering, power, all right, windshield wipers and things, and how that all takes place. So a lot of similarities to draw upon. And I guess when I think, and again, I'm going to come back now to the digital perspective here and how you could potentially minimize pain in this transition. And I think one of the things that, even with these similarities, is really thinking about reuse of data, product data into tooling data, right? So you could have models that are used to build out your product record, right? The source of truth for the product. And I have worked with many companies that don't reuse that data, but actually will create a drawing that gets signed off, and that drawing gets shipped to the manufacturing engineering people that are then responsible for process development, tools, checking fixtures, molds, dies, assembly fixtures, holding fixtures, all sorts of things. And they're recreating, basically they interrogate that drawing and take that information out and create new models that are maybe at a different level of complexity, a more mature level of complexity that's necessary for them to be successful with their tool designs. And this gets at this whole concept of, if they could just reuse that product model to some degree, it could save a lot of time for them building out their models and their model sets. But there's got to be good cross communication between the organizations for that to happen. And that typically can happen if they're talking about characteristics of the data sets that are involved in these product programs. And we've often talked about the concept of data set ratings, where you determine the maturity of your data, your digital information, and you use that as a way to communicate the level of sophistication of a product program. All right, so there's a lot of possibilities to really ease the pain of that transition if you're effective with these data reuse, data set rating techniques. And it can help you in a number of ways. And simulation, emulation, there's a lot of ways that such data can be put to work for you to help speed design transfer, get involved with what-if scenarios, and really minimize physical changes before you're really sure that's what you want to do. All right, so I think there's a lot of good things there to consider.
Yeah, that's great. Clearly, there's a lot of similarities in the process, and also similar digital capabilities that can benefit both traditional and EV manufacturing. But what about some of the differences? Like what differences are you seeing from traditional automotive manufacturing to EVs?
Another great question, and to kind of build upon that. And as you think about the differences, the obvious one is the powertrain. All right, so you're going from an internal combustion engine and all of the ancillary equipment necessary to make that work to get power to the wheels to drive a vehicle forward or wherever you want to go, reverse, whatever. But drive the vehicle, right? Have some fun with that. And with an electric vehicle, though, that changes radically. All right, now you have motors providing this, and they can be literally at each of the wheels. And with those motors now, the energy is stored in batteries. All right, instead of being in a gas tank, all right, you now have a battery system that you've got to work with. So designers have to figure out how to incorporate that into the design. There's safety considerations, all sorts of things that really need to be affected there. And another dimension of this, not directly associated with the product, but if you think of the full supply chain now of EV, they're touching on a lot of new and exotic materials from an automotive standpoint. All right, and this is involved with the motors, and there's rare earth materials involved in the magnets, the batteries, lithium ion. You're talking about lithium, nickel, cobalt. A whole variety of materials are the common ones today. And these are materials that recycling and the reuse of these, that supply chain is not nearly as mature as the balance of the automotive, the traditional automotive supply chain. So I think that's something that new suppliers at any level, OEM, tier ones, or even tier twos and beyond, have to consider and really kind of think about some of those considerations. And I also think it's important to keep in mind there's other technologies, I think, that are coming to light right now. These are more concurrent. I don't think EV is necessarily driving them, but the timing is such that EV is taking advantage of many of these. So there's different body structures coming out. So advances in material science, all right, just traditional changes from, say, steel to aluminum, or various carbon fiber composite materials. And like I said, some very exotic materials people are experimenting with along the way there. And that changes some of the economics with regard to these vehicles, right? Because there's some tooling implications with many of these technologies. All right, so additive manufacturing is another component of that. And then from a product standpoint, regenerative braking systems. All right, so EV, actually, the regenerative brakes, they take advantage of those in EVs because of the battery storage capacity. All right, they're able to take advantage of the ability of the brakes to generate electricity, all right, in a manner that can be stored and then reused for mobility. All right, so kind of cool when you start thinking about some of these differences and the implications. But now let's think about the digital perspective and minimizing pain in this environment. And I guess things that come to mind to me, software release management now is a different game when you think about software releases after vehicle launch. Okay, so traditional vehicles have control systems just like EVs, and they're more inclined to release software, but not necessarily update those software releases very frequently while it's in the field. EVs, on the other hand, have really seemed to embrace that concept and have pushed releases out more frequently, improving the customer experience. And if you think about working with software releases after launch, that really changes staffing, funding models, and everything for product development. And it creates a kind of a blend of DevOps that firms really have to think about. All right, so I think that concept and getting your head around that could be one way to ease the pain. And another way, I think EV manufacturers are more inclined to be reacting to feedback and data from the field more quickly. All right, quicker cycles of reaction, of hearing of a problem or an issue, and how they're going to react to that, and maybe work with that with their product development. So I think those are some things that they can think about.
Great, very good points, Michael. Just I see we're almost out of time. So can you provide some closing thoughts on how automotive manufacturers can ease the pain, as you said, in the shift to electric vehicles?
Embrace the digital thread. I think there's so many opportunities there. If you view your product data as the backbone, all right, of a lot of these activities, it is foundational for a digital twin of the product. And with it, you can then really begin to think about data reuse along that entire life cycle of a product as it moves through product development, through design transfer into manufacturing and beyond. All right, and with it, the concept of data sets and how you can look at the maturity of those to communicate effectively what's taking place in your product development and deployment processes. I would also seek to leverage things like simulation or emulation and other technologies, maybe virtual reality. We really didn't have a chance to really talk about that much here because of the time constraint, but those are things to definitely consider. And I'd really, prepare for that concept of software management after launch. So get ready to experiment, fail fast, learn from it, scale your successes, and enjoy the journey. I think those are the things that come to mind. Nick, I really appreciate you doing this with me, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.